very good remarks, setting the tone and indicating, of course, informing us about the Catholic University of Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, which is offering the course in standardization at certificate level. This is also to confirm that indeed the same kind of activity is under discussion. The Catholic University of Eastern Africa, which is based in Nairobi. What we've done at ARSO essentially is to have two levels of engagement. One where we have a master's curriculum that looks at having people who are already in employment or who want to specialize in issues of standards join training and get that master's degree in quality infrastructure, but with specializations, of course, in standardization or in standards development, conformity assessment, metrology or accreditation. So that is the kind of curriculum we already have. Now, I will simply give a short summary to set the context of this webinar, in the sense that what we have currently is an endeavor to fulfill the continental strategy on education, which is to educate an African fit for the 21st century. Why is that important? It is important that in the sense that when you look at most of the courses that are offered in our universities, they are good courses in their own line. They deal with the mainstream technologies or the subjects. However, you will find that most of the times these courses do not delve into matters of standards. And we realize that standards affect every aspect or every facet of society, whether it is in terms of trade, whether it is in terms of governance, regulation, whether it is in terms of social organizations. We have a lot of standards that go along with that. So standards shape our everyday life. And in that respect, it is important that we are able to have education that corresponds to the aspects that we are looking at. Philip, I don't know whether you are the one running the presentation. Yeah, you could go back. So what we need, as I said, is education that enables us to utilize standards in our daily lives, which is what actually happens, because you can't start to imagine that there is any particular aspect of life that you actually deal with or that is not affected by standards, whether it is issues of the timing when you wake up and when you report to work, that is measured. So there are measurement standards in that respect. Whether it is the water that you are using in your house, the water is measured, the electricity is measured, and there are standards that ensure that the measurements are accurate so that you do not pay for something that is not exactly what you intended to have. And so whether it is the cooking of the food so that you are able to get safe food, there are aspects of standards that go into that. And therefore, it is important for us to understand that even if you are doing engineering, you are doing food technology, you are doing law, you are doing psychology, you are doing whatever it is, in all these disciplines, there are particular standards that go with that. And therefore, the question is, why is it that we do not learn about the standards when we are in universities or when you're in colleges, when you're in school, so that you're able to grasp the idea that in this particular discipline that I'm learning, we do have standards that guide the process. So, and that's why we brought this point that, yes, indeed, when we are being trained, you go out and in your field you find people are talking about standards. Are you able yourself to get the skills that can enable you to develop these standards that are required? Or are you able to recognize when a standard is required in that particular aspect? So that is the whole purpose of education about standardization, so that you are able to understand in your field of specialization which kind of standards are needed, and therefore whether you need to develop them yourself or you establish a system that is used to develop these standards within the organization or in the sphere that you are working in. Let's move forward. So we do have this theme that comes from the African Union, and sometimes when it comes, you understand that the African Union itself cannot do everything. These things have to be done at the country level, and therefore it is important that our countries are able to do these particular activities by including aspects of standards or improving the skills that they offer to their students. Now, a lot of activities elsewhere, or a lot of initiatives have been carried out. While in ARSO we started this process from around 2005, in other areas or in other continents, like in Europe, this process has already started there. And this is championed by the Committee on Standardization, their Committee on Electrotechnical, and the European Technical Telecommunication Standards Institute. So these are activities foreseen by key institutions to ensure that they can do this. Let's move forward. And then we do have other initiatives elsewhere. For example, in Korea, that this is something that has taken root there, and it's encouraging to see all these initiatives and how they are worked out. Next. So why do we want to educate and ensure that we have competence in education about standards? When you look at our continent, for example, you find that in many cases, when you are faced with the idea of streamlining operations in various organizations, there is always the call for consultants. While in actual fact, you can have internal training or internal people understand the organizations much better, ensuring that they can develop the necessary standards which are required. For instance, if it is what we call the standard operating procedures, yes, these are technical documents that guide you within the organization how to carry out various activities. Can you develop them within the organization? And that is exactly what we need to have, that knowledge that you're able to develop. I can move forward. Yeah, so this forms the basis for us to think of how we introduce standardization in our institutions, and at what level do we want to do that. We are not saying that this has to be done only at the university level. We are looking at having this being done from the very early stages in the development of a student, from primary school, where you introduce the standards in a manner that just creates interest, and therefore an inquisitive mind that goes to check for whether this is something that they can pursue at higher levels. In secondary schools, where you have some ideas of competition, we do have various competitions on mathematics, you have science competitions, you have innovation competitions and all that. What is lacking is that component of standards. Whenever there's an innovation, can that innovation be aligned with a particular standard? And that's what we normally have lacking, so that we have inventions that are very good, but they do not comply with any specific standard. And we need those who are doing the innovations to understand what kind of standards go with them, so that they can improve on the products and ensure that they can actually go to the market. Next. So who can be trained? We have a lot of people can be trained from the CEOs, policymakers, marketing experts, students, national governments, local governments, and all those that play a part in our social fabric to ensure that they understand what is required. And we have emphasized on this because sometimes there's this feeling that certain aspects can only be done by using the law, and using the law without applying standards, so that whoever is, not complying with the law, then they get penalized. But can we utilize standards that people understand why you're asking for them to comply with that particular law? Or can those laws be anchored in standards so that it is easier for people to understand and follow? And then they can also be, measure that compliance. Next. And therefore, this is the field in which I think what we are going to do is to invite our presenters or panelists to start the presentations, because I don't want to go into the issue of exhausting the kind of knowledge we are looking for from our experts. I don't know whether Philip, if we have not checked, I don't know whether we have Professor Blind online, because he had requested that he could do his presentation early and then he could go. Professor Blind, if you are available, please, you can do your presentation before I hand over to the moderator for the rest of the panelists. So if not available immediately, I think we could have moderator Nosifo, you take over and kindly guide the rest of the discussions. When Professor Plin comes on board, we can have his presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gisori. Maybe before you proceed, can you confirm that you have covered your topic?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
What I was to do is to create that environment for us to move forward. That, yes.
Okay, all right. So probably in that regard, maybe I might just pose one question to you before we proceed.
Yes, please.
Okay. So what would you say are some specific examples of 21st century development needs, opportunities, and challenges, maybe in a nutshell? Thank you.
What we have in the 21st century needs, we need within the continent, if you look at what is required, is a massive opportunities for development. Now, these massive opportunities include aspects of infrastructure, food security, or food technology, social organization, and everything, and all those. So there are these opportunities for those who have taken the courses on standards to play a part in terms of being consultants, in terms of being managers, or in terms of being leaders in the realization of Africa's development aspects, be it in terms of food, be it in terms of infrastructure, be it in terms of health, and all these fields that require a lot of expertise to be realized in the way that we want. We do require, if it is in issues of research, people can critically look at issues. Critical thinking is required in terms of ensuring that we can carry out research that is responding to the needs of the continent. And therefore, when I look at it, is that the opportunities are immense. And currently, these areas that you find are dominated by expatriates from outside the continent, and therefore, we would like to see that we actually have the knowledge within the continent that can alleviate the shortage that we do have at the moment, and ensure that we can do in a sustainable way, we can carry out our activities in the continent without strains or struggling to look for experts from everywhere in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gisori, for your response. I think our next presentation, our next panelist is Professor Blind. Is he now on the platform such that he can share his presentation? Probably get some assistance from Philip just to follow up on that one. Oh, okay. Thank you, Dan. Okay, Dan, confirm you are sharing Professor Blind's presentation.
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm assuming from this we are moving on to the next presentation from Mr. Alexio Maseka.
Yeah.
I hope he's on the platform.
Yes, he is.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Mr. Maseka.
Yes,
thank you, Mr. Maseka. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Maseka is going to be presenting on the implementation of education about standardization at the national levels. He's going to be giving us national experiences and policy issues, particularly from Zimbabwe Catholic University Initiative and curriculum. So Mr. Maseka is from Zimbabwe, and he's an standardization expert with various experience with various standards starting from 9001 and also ISO 21001. So Mr. Maseka, you can share your presentation and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. My presentation, let me share it. Where do I go to share my presentation?
Okay, if you go to the bottom of the screen and you highlight there's a share screen in green.
Yes, share screen in green. Yes, I've got it.
Yes. And then you choose your presentation from there.
The presentation that I submitted, am I right?
Yes. Alternatively, if there are issues, maybe Dan can assist.
Yes, the presentation that I submitted, maybe Dan can assist. Or I can present the 5-minute one, slides.
Yes, maybe Dan, whilst you can probably start on your presentation and then Dan can be sharing the screen as well.
Okay, but let me share the 5-minute slides presentation. Is it on now? I'm sharing.
Yes, yes, we can see the conclusion.
Is there now?
Maybe you can start from the beginning.
That's the beginning. Yes, my sub-theme is implementation of education about standardization at the national levels, the national experiences and policy issues, Zimbabwe National Universities, Zimbabwe Catholic University Initiative and Curriculum, and others initiatives that we have for Zimbabwe.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Maseka.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible to put it on slideshow, please?
Yes, it's on slideshow. It's a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, it's not showing slideshow from our end.
Yeah, can you click on the video part in the...
On the video part?
On the video, yeah.
Okay, let me do that.
Down. It is down.
Yeah, okay, there. Is it okay now?
No.
I should close that video of me.
No. You see where you have you can increase the... There is plus and minus, okay? Near this, there is a symbol. You click on it. Yeah, go down. Yeah, left. No. Where you go, where you were before. Yeah, click. Yeah, this one. No. Yeah, this one. Click on it. Click. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
So you're okay now?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for the delays. So on my introduction, I presented an overview of ISO 21000 Educational Organization Management System. That it is the first standard for implementing the requirements of elements of education systems, specifically focusing on the curriculum and policies. The importance of aligning educational objectives and policies is one of the critical success factors for educational institutions through the implementation of this international standard. And there are principles that are related to the implementation of this international standard, which are equitable distribution of knowledge. We also talk about the gender equality. We also talk about the programs, where we are saying the programs must be focused in terms of aligning with the requirements of the specific programs. So those are the key elements in terms of implementation of this standard. And also focusing on personalized learning, and also interested parties, also participation in the implementation of this standard. The requirements, I won't belabor the point by talking about the requirements of this international standard. I think we are all familiar with the requirements of this international standard and the applications, and this webinar addresses the clauses of this international standard. All the key concepts that we have come up with, I see them being reflecting the requirements of the international standards. And also this international standard is applicable to various educational organizations. Various organizations including early learning centers, universities, vocational training schools. It's also applicable to academies. All institutions that provide education can implement this international standard. The potential benefits of this international standard is that it is learner-centered, and also it addresses environmental issues. It addresses the requirements, legal and requirements for the standard. The principles drawn upon the effective implementation of this are also key components in implementing this standard. Come zeroing in on Zimbabwe, the initiatives that we have in Zimbabwe as the Standard Association of Zimbabwe, first and foremost, we are collaborating with academic institutions like the University of Zimbabwe. Standardization, we have a standardization certificate based on the MOU among the three partners, that is ARSO, SAZ, and the Catholic University. We also have an initiative on quality assurance certificate in collaboration with the University of Zimbabwe Department of Business Enterprise Management. Then we've got specific modules with various academic institutions. Then we also have certification. Currently, we have one university, Chinoy University of Technology, which has already engaged SAZ to conduct certification audits and to be certified to ISO 21000 of 2018 Educational Organization Management System. And stage one audits, they've already engaged and paid for the stage one audit, which is scheduled for July 2024, which is next month. So those are the initiatives that we, as Standard Association of Zimbabwe, we are involved in. We have got challenges as the Standard Association of Zimbabwe with regards to challenges associated with creating a strong quality culture foundation. Quality culture foundation in order for us to create demand for standards. Okay, there is no strong quality culture foundation which can affect demand for standards. Also, curriculum development for standards in education needs to be aligned with the fast changing environments and new areas. Like ISO 21000 of 2018 actually specifies the requirements of assessment, where we've got attachments of students in various programs, where they go for a year, where they are attached to specific industries which relate to their programs. So there's need to create awareness in industries to coordinate and link up with the requirements of attachment for assessment purposes to fulfill the requirements for ISO 21000 of 2018 Educational Organization Management Systems. So I hope the presentation, the main presentation that I presented, I think Gisori can assist to put it on there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Maseka. Probably just to pose a question to you. What do we consider an African fit for the 21st century, and what does it take for an education system to realize its dream, this dream?
The most important thing that I consider is the implementation of ISO 21000, specifically to what I alluded to earlier on, is with regards to making the educational system bespoke to the learners' environments and the various economic value chains that we have in Africa. That is one of the key success factor for the 21st century in terms of education and standards, is the implementation of the requirements to suit the specific environments or economic value chains of the learners. That is one of the most important issues for a fit for the 21st century for Africa. Also aligning with our African quality policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Maseka, for your answer. I think now we will move on to the next presentation. Thank you for your time, Mr. Maseka. We will move on to the next presentation. I don't know if Professor Blind is now on the platform, such that we move to his presentation. Okay, all right. So let's move on to the presentation by Dr. Ati Khosla. And Dr. Ati will be talking to us about the importance of having a responsive education system, institutions and policy, the ISO 21001 Educational Organization Management System Standard Policy and Guidelines. Dr. Khosla will be talking to us in a capacity as the project leader for ISO TC 232 Working Group, which is for Educational Organizations Management System. Dr. Ati, maybe you can start sharing the screen and you can proceed with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm introduction. And this is indeed a very good platform where we are discussing the importance of education on standards. And my previous speaker, Maseka, very nicely highlighted the fact that a strong quality culture is needed, which can affect demand for standards. That means only if people understand that standards are needed right from the childhood, if we are trying to build this culture in the schools, everybody understands the need. And when they grow up, they go to the industry, they start demanding standards, they start creating new standards. So the whole culture would vary depending on the demand. Yeah. So thank you very much for highlighting that, and let me quickly share my presentation. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. So, of course, in the African sustainable development for 21st century, the most crucial points that my previous speaker again tried to highlight, and the moderator is also trying to highlight in the questions, why Africa would need standards, more education on standards is, of course, We would like to equip our youth with the essential skills so that our economic growth can be ensured and we can globally compete. So all the three factors will help the continent to, reach the level. And when you talk about responsive education, there are three components which are very important. It's the education system itself, the entire system. It's the educational institutions and responsive policies. So we have to begin at the level of the policy. If the policies are designed in such a way that we rely on the data that we have, the evidences that we have, and we try to make the most resilient policies, the policies that can immediately respond to the changing situations, and they are agile in nature, only then we can ensure that the educational institutions become responsive. They start taking care of the learner-centered approach. They start focusing more on innovation and technology. I'll just give you an example. So many educational institutions, we have seen that most of the teachers, the faculty, is mostly engaged with a lot of documentation work, a lot of administrative tasks, and they hardly get any time to work on innovation. They hardly get time to carry out research. And because of that reason, the whole education system, it's getting difficult to make it inclusive, to make it adaptable, to make it flexible. And we are not trying much to focus on the real-time feedback from the stakeholders. This is supposed to be an ongoing process. Now, if you talk about ISO 21001, this is the first ever management system standard that the ISO has developed. It's not that earlier we didn't have the standards on education. We had the workshop agreements, we had the guidelines. We had a very good document on how to implement ISO 9001 in the education sector, but a very specific, dedicated, standalone management system standard was developed for the first time in 2018, and 21001 was published. And the most important areas that it is touching upon are, of course, engaging the stakeholders, customizing the learning, because every learner might have some diverse learning abilities. So looking at the individualized requirements of the learners, the curriculum has to be planned in a way. Then talking specifically about higher education, when our learners go and they start working in the industry, we need a lot of feedback from the industry, which can again go back into the design of the curriculum. And ISO lays a lot of emphasis on that. In ISO 21001, we are also talking about transparency, establishing accountability, so that you can see that whatever the educational institutions produce, it is effective. It is effective enough to ensure that the learners build those 21st century skills, that the learners become more responsive, and they also become future ready, because we are not trying to develop the skills that they would need today. In the fast changing technological environment, in the entire ecosystem, it is very important that the learners are able to face the world in the future, and they know what kind of skills would be needed. Just yesterday, somebody gave me a very nice example that, maybe when we were in school, we were in college at that time, we were only expected to become doctors, engineers, and do some core professional tasks, right? Whereas today, there are a lot of professions that are existing, which we could not even imagine, say, 5 years ago. So with this fast changing environment, with so much happening in the entire business ecosystem across the world, it is very important that the educational organizations continuously keep working on that. And ISO 21001 is definitely a very good tool that is now available to the education sector. We all understand that educational organizations need to keep evaluating as to what level they've been able to meet the requirements of learners and the other interested parties. Unless they know where they are, they don't know where to go. right? So it is very, very important, and the ISO 21001 is continuously telling you to take constant feedback and use that feedback to further align your activities. This particular standard is also contributing to the achievement of 3 UN Sustainable Development Goals. Goal number 11, that is sustainable cities and communities. Goal number 10, which is reducing inequalities. And of course, goal number 4, which is quality education. So the educational institutions who have been able to implement this standard, they have devised several strategies, several mechanisms, different projects they have implemented so that they are ultimately able to achieve the sustainable development goals. The beauty of this standard is that it's a common framework for any educational organization, whether it is an early childhood education or a training institution or a university or just the learning and development, maybe a full-fledged training institution or maybe a very small department within a large corporate, within industry. So wherever some teaching learning is happening using a defined curriculum, this standard can be very well applied. School education is a very, very important vertical where this standard is being used. And the beneficiaries are, of course, the institutions themselves, the learners, and all the stakeholders who are attached to it. This is the whole structure of the standard. This is too much of content on one slide, but this is just to tell you that the standard is aligned with the high-level structure, NXSL, and this also follows the same structure that the other ISO standards are following. Currently, we are in the process of revising the standard. We have got very good feedback from across the world. And now we are trying to work on all of that. And now we have very recently moved the CD ballot. So this has gone to all the members of TC232, where we are working on the revision of the standard. And a lot of accreditation bodies across the world in a lot of countries are working on developing their accreditation schemes on ISO 21001. Secondly, now there is another standard called ISO 21030, which is again a standard which is going to guide the conformity assessment bodies, because the competence that the auditors would need to audit an educational institution will be slightly, of course, different from what they would need to audit an ISO 9001 standard. Another very, very, I would say, a facilitator in the standard is that you have a lot of guidance available within the standard. There are around 7 annexures which are giving you guidelines on not only the principles and classification of interested parties, but also on health and safety. Also, there are some additional guidelines for the early childhood education. These are the 11 principles which are slightly different from ISO 9001. Especially the leadership is the visionary leadership, and principle number 8, 9, 10, and 11 are very, very critical to an educational organization. Social responsibility, accessibility, and equity, where we are trying to ensure that every educational organization that implements the standard becomes inclusive. They have all those practices in place, and they continuously train their teachers, their educators to handle these learners with special needs, not just the physical infrastructure, but also the psychosocial ecosystem is created in these organizations accordingly. Then data security and protection is also a very new principle that has been added here, so that all the stakeholders, whether they are the parents or the management or the funding agencies or the government or the accreditation bodies, they all know that their data is safe and secure. And ethical practices are there. So ISO 37001, if you all know, anti-bribery management system, that has a reference in the standard. Internationalization is possible with this standard. And I have seen various organizations who have been certified for ISO 21001. They have established a lot of global partnerships. They have been able to enhance their quality assurance frameworks. Financial benefits is nowhere very explicitly defined, but yes, these organizations have been able to collect a lot of data which shows that they have been able to avoid reworks. They have been able to save costs on certain projects because of having standards, because of having processes in place, And because of that, the systems have become more efficient, they've become more effective, and sustainable development they've been able to ensure. Now, ISO is helping you, this particular standard is helping you to work on various challenges and also creating a lot of opportunities. For example, inclusive education was nowhere being talked about. There are few countries, I am not very sure if Africa has the guidelines from the government, but some of the countries for accessibility, there were no very specific guidelines. And now because of ISO 21001, the educational organizations are working on it. Especially if I talk about a country like India, where the Higher Education Authority, the Accreditation Authority, has very recently told all the educational institutions to go for ISO 21001 so that they can rely on the systems and accreditation becomes a simpler activity. Then resource management, of course. And teacher training has become a very, very important component so that these institutions continue to enhance the capacity building activities for their educators, continue to enhance the focus on learners and make a lot of collaborations and ensure ethical practices in place. So this was all about the standard. Now my final remarks are that, of course, a lot of countries across the whole world, they need to understand, they need to have a lot of experts who understand what is an educational quality management system, EOMS. Whether the implementers or the auditors, both need to understand that this particular standard can solve a lot of problems. This is not just a tick box, of course. Education being the backbone for any nation, it is very, very important that this particular standard is taken very seriously when the implementation is happening, and every university, every school, every college does it with extreme, I would say, engagement from the leadership, which is needed. And yeah, the last point, beneficiaries, whether it's the parents or the industry or the other stakeholders, they pay for the trust. They don't pay only for the educational services. That's it from my side, and I'll be happy to take up questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ati. I was about to stop you there, but then when I saw final remarks, I was like, I don't have to do that. Okay, but then anyway, you're just within time. So maybe I'll just pose one question to you. What would you say are the key 21st development strategies and requirements that standards address, and how do standards fit into these requirements? Maybe you can zero in on ISO 21001 whilst you're giving us your answer.
Sure. So there are a lot of organizations that I am associated with who have implemented, who have been certified. They have created a lot of success stories. And these success stories are not just in the teaching learning process, but also in the other support processes, right? From the admission of the learner to the passing out of the learner, every process has been streamlined where effectiveness and efficiency is being ensured. In fact, I sometimes get very surprised to see that people have been able to evaluate that in numbers. With the ISO 21001 standard, it was very difficult. I never knew that people could really use it in that way. So it's a good evaluation tool. It's a very good framework to know how much you've been able to satisfy your stakeholders, and their feedback you can always use. Your research and innovation using digital tools for the personalized learning, and most importantly, addressing the diverse learning abilities of your learners is what this standard can really help you with. And it can ultimately build a very resilient education system. Thank you. I hope I've been able to answer you.
Thank you very much. That was a very good response. Thank you, Dr. Ati. I think we'll probably move to the next presentation. Thank you once again. I think if there's anyone with questions, they can put them in the chat box, and then probably at the end, when we're finished with our presentations, we can probably address some of those questions if we have some time. So our next presentation is going to be from Bill Rivers. I already see that he's on the platform. And Bill is currently the chair of ISO TC 232, that is ISO Technical Committee 232 for Education and Learning Services. Bill, welcome. You can go ahead with the presentation.
And thank you, Nozifo. It's my pleasure to be here. I am excited by the level of participation and interest. I note that we have 160 participants right now. My remarks will be relatively brief. I don't have a prepared presentation, though I will show a couple of infographics, and once that material is ready, I will send it on to the organizers. I want to start with thanking my colleague and friend, Arti Khosla, for her excellent presentation on ISO 21001, and also commend her for her leadership of the revision of that project and her leadership of the development of our strategic business plan, which I'm going to talk about in just a bit. So ISO 21001 was formed initially, and I'm going to show just a little bit of stuff, formed initially in the late teens. I became involved in 2011 during the development of the standard on language learning services. But ISO TC 232 was originally concerned with education outside of the formal system. And with the development of ISO 21001 by Project Committee 288, ISO Central Secretariat assigned the maintenance and the care and tending of that standard to TC 232, and that necessitated a change in our title and our scope. So now we cover all of educational standards. As you may well know, education is one of the largest sectors of the global economy. It accounts for about 5%, directly accounts for about 5% of the global GDP. So that's roughly $5 or $6 trillion. I don't have the calculations in front of me, but the impact of education, as we also know intuitively and sometimes explicitly, is enormous. For example, a country that can improve half of a standard deviation on the international PISA tests in terms of its scores sees a corresponding increase in GDP of roughly 2%. And there are lots of other indicators of the impact of education. What I want to highlight first is the participation. You can see this map, the total participants in TC 232. It's, of course, distorted because it's a Mercator projection, so the countries in the north and south are much bigger than the ones in the center proportionally. But we do have extensive participation. We have some of the world's largest and most powerful economies. But right now, what we need are more
Bill?
participants. Yes?
Sorry, Bill. Are you sharing anything currently?
I am. It's not. Is it not showing?
Yeah, we can't see anything on the screen.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I hit the button, but it didn't share. Okay, here we go. Now, can you see that?
Yes, we can now.
Yes,
thank you.
So you see this map, and thank you for catching that, because I can see the map. The technology is fantastic. I'll touch on that too, but it does have certain limitations. You can see that Africa is sparsely represented. We have Kenya, the way that ISO defines Africa. We have Kenya, which has been a long-time participant, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria, which are relatively recent as participating members, and Ethiopia and South Africa as observing members. And my request to all of you is to consider working with your national standards body to participate or observe in TC 232. And the reason I ask that is because we have a very ambitious agenda, but we need more people. We always need more people to work on these projects, to lead projects, and to develop these standards. And that's pretty much the point of my talk, is to ask people to get involved. Now, you see the participation. You'll see in North Africa, we also have Egypt and Morocco participating. And then I want to go down. I apologize for scrolling through like this, which is, always a bit nauseating. This is just a list of the standards which we have developed thus far. And so we have learning services outside of formal education service requirements. So remembering that a management system standard must conform to the ISO Annex SL with the higher level structure. And what it really lays out is how to manage a particular type of service and product, whatever it is, at a fairly high level. I know I'm oversimplifying, and I apologize to RT because I'm garbling this terribly, but that a management system standard doesn't say how to deliver a service. And so then we have service standards, which then allow for specific differentiation. So learning services outside of formal education. You think of corporate trainings or private language schools, things that are not regulated through the ministry or funded through the Ministry of Education in a particular country. And that was the initial remit of TC 232. And that standard still, we revised it after the development of 21001, and that addresses the non-formal sector. Assessment of outcomes of learning services guidance. And this, I think, is a particularly important standard because of the ever-increasing use of assessments to evaluate institutions, to evaluate educational systems, as well, of course, as the use to determine grades and scores at the individual level. Obviously, ISO 21001, which already very ably addressed. Language learning services requirements, that's specific to language learning. Education learning services vocabulary, you see that one there. That is essentially harmonizing our terminology across the committee, kind of an internal facing document, but what we hope that will be useful to other standards bodies at NSBs. Requirements for distance learning. And I'll stop here for just a bit. We developed this in the latter part of the last decade before the pandemic. It was obviously published during the pandemic. But we don't address the technological standards. There's JTC1 SC36 on information technology for learning, education, and teaching. They do all the technical standards, the zeros and ones, the wire diagrams, etc. What we address are the development and delivery of curricula, the types of educator preparation that are required, how delivering education and learning through distance is different from doing it in person, in vivo. Then the audit standard, which I already mentioned, and then distance and digital learning services case studies, which is a compendium of some case studies of best practices. So that's where we are right now. Now, of course, the pandemic set us back a bit in developing new standards, but what we are looking at in this is the strategic business plan for the TC that you see here. It's in draft form, and so I'm going to stop sharing now and come back to the meeting. And once that is published, we will share it with everyone here, because I think that is appropriate for essentially my presentation is, this is what we've done, please join, and now what do we intend to do? And where I think we're going, first is clearly artificial intelligence is going to play some role in, or some sets of roles in education. And we need to start working on standards for that. There are attempts to regulate and legislate artificial intelligence, not necessarily in the educational context. The European Union and the European Commission are proceeding from consumer safety. The US has yet to really consolidate around an organizing principle for the regulation and legislation of artificial intelligence. But as ISO and as ISO mirror committees, we have the opportunity, and I think the obligation, to provide the kinds of standards that will address the implementation. We're also considering standards on deliverables, standards on learner and educator preparation, on tutoring, and on a number of other subjects. So my bottom line request is that if you are interested as an NSB, as a standards committee within your country, to please work with your NSBs and become involved with TC 232. We will hold our next in-person meeting in Milano, in Italy, in March of next year. And we hold a virtual plenary in the fall. And we may return to holding some in-person working group meeting weeks as well. Recognizing the virtual meetings can be productive. They're not always as productive as working in person. And with that, I will stop and take your questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill, for your presentation. Short and sweet. Thank you so much. Okay. So
Please get involved. Don't read my bio. It's very long. It's just because I'm old. I've done a lot of stuff.
No, okay, all right, thank you. All right, so there is the Master in Standardization, Social Regulation and Sustainable Development with the University of Geneva. So given that initiative, what sort of elements should be included in the education and about standardization curricula?
In the curriculum for the standards, if people are studying standardization of education.
Yes, yes.
That's a very challenging question because, as we know, educational systems are so tremendously different across countries. And I apologize. And so I think fundamental to understanding standardization is having a basic conceptual understanding of how education itself is funded, how participation at student and family level works in different contexts, and how it's governed. So the US, for example, is maximally decentralized. We have a Department of Education which by law cannot influence curricula, by law. I met with the Secretary of Education yesterday, for example. He's a great guy, brilliant. We have 56 state and territorial departments of education that have varying degrees of control over more than 13,000 local school districts, each of which has elected leadership, and its own funding mechanism. And that's for primary and secondary. And then we have more than 2,800 tertiary institutions, some of which are completely independent and for-profit, some of which are funded by, at least in part, by state governments. And all that is by way of saying that can be bewildering. And then when I go to other places where there's, Ireland or France, a single ministry of education, and everyone who's teaching kindergarten through postgraduate works for the ministry, right? So how do we then develop global relevance? And this is one of the key issues for ISO. Standards must be globally relevant. So we have to be able to attend to determine what the fundamental principles are, and Artie laid those out very well. So understanding the bases of the educational systems worldwide, understanding fundamental principles, and then moving on to, what can and should be standardized. The value of management system standards is often entirely internal to the organization. They improve internal efficiencies, they have better staff trainings, they have better onboarding for new staff because of the rigor of going through documenting your processes and documenting your mission and so on. That's often the first order effect, and then we see increases in quality and so on. So I think another pillar for that kind of educational program would be carefully studying the impact of the use of these standards. Are there changes that you can correlate to the certification, to ISO 21001, for example?
Thank you very much, Bill. You said it was a challenging question, but you tackled it very well. Thank you so much for your response. And thank you once again for availing your time to present at this webinar. So I think right now we'll move on to the next presentation. Thank you, Bill.
I'm signing off. I've got to take my daughter to her school. So it's
okay.
It's 8 in the morning here,
safe
so
journey.
Thank you.
Safe journey.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
So our next presentation is going to be from Professor Blind, who is the coordinator of Business Unit Innovation and Regulation, project manager for Edu for Standards EU project. He's going to be presenting to us on the education in the 21st century, bringing standardization in university curricula and effective education about standardization in the context of European Union Edu for Standards EU projects. I hope I was saying that correctly. But then Professor Blind, will give you the platform.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Nati. Thank you also for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. And let's see. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can. You can proceed. Probably you can put it on a slideshow.
So, have it? Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it's good. Thank you. You can proceed.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm working for Fraunhofer ISI, and also I'm professor for innovation and economics here at TU Berlin. And yeah, we had the good chance, or the great chance, to conduct a project on education about standards. The acronym is EDO for Standards, with many partners. You see here the different universities all over Europe. Also CEN, the European Standardization Body, is included. And here I'm also quite happy to share this with you, because I think maybe it's also beneficial for you to have an idea what we are doing. Education about standardization is really high on the agenda. In Europe, we have the European Standardization Strategy. There's also the High Level Forum, which has a work stream on the topic. Also, the European Commission published the Code of Practice on Standardization, which also addressed education. And in the first study we did on the European Standardization Panel Survey, we also found out that maybe in contrast to Africa, Europe has really a big demographic problem, and the demographic problem is even more relevant for the experts being active in standardization. I might share the link to this study later. Furthermore, in last year, just 1 year ago, the US administration, the Biden administration, published their standardization strategy, which also highlighted that education about standardization is key. That's very important to mention. There are national activities. For example, yesterday in Germany, the Mirror Committee of the European High Level Forum met, and also we agreed to start a working group on education. It means we have a high demographic challenge, but there are also many new topics like IA, quantum, and the challenge of climate change. And but EDO for Standards might maybe push this topic forward, maybe in Europe, but also maybe worldwide. I have also a little bit the ambition to push that beyond European borders, because I think the consortium is at least from the European perspective, the who is who in this topic. We are also quite open to involve other interested actors in Europe, and maybe even beyond. And this is a 3-year project, but we are really dedicated to push that beyond the 3 years. In Europe, there's EURAS. It's an association of the European researchers about standardization research, and also with many teachers. That means we want to have really a sustainable initiative, and therefore it's interesting to talk about you with that. Here's just a list of the universities and other organizations being involved, and you see here, I think we have a nice coverage. Now, what's about the project? We have 5 objectives. First, to develop and disseminate teaching material about standardization. There is a lot of teaching material around, but partly outdated, and also not maybe considering new topics. Oops, okay, I'm not doing this. Therefore, that's one aspect, and we have therefore as a first task to develop also innovation teaching concepts. And one maybe element to mention is that we are also using games, strategic games, serious games, to simulate standardization situations. Then in Europe, we will organize academic standardization days in order to make the topic more visible among universities, teachers, and students. And this is another aspect. Therefore, our third objective is then to increase the number of higher education institutes and universities offering teaching on standardization. Then also, which means increasing the number of teachers which are offering courses, and eventually having more students attending the courses about standardization. And finally, we'll also probably set up a student standardization association. And as I said, the innovation teaching concept is the first step we are currently working on. We will have different pilots addressing bachelor, master courses, but also in-company training, also extracurricular formats, seasonal schools, and also some pan-European activities, and also get the students on board. We want to really develop the community of organization, teachers, and students. In the long run, we also plan workshop, webinars, etc. And so also you are maybe invited to join here if you are interested. Therefore, sign up to follow us maybe on LinkedIn. The project has a LinkedIn account, and therefore you can follow. There are other projects in Europe which are also having some teaching components, and therefore we also exploit these synergies. That's a little bit what we plan to do. We have different stakeholders, and here is the list. That means, sure, the higher education institute, the universities are the most relevant ones, and here we have a big reach. In Germany, for example, we also work with the standardization organization together, and they have already developed a network of, I'm not sure, between 50 and 100 organizations, also getting more teachers on board, considering also different organizations like also ISO, IC, and others, but also the European ones, students associations, and then very important, the SCOs in Europe, especially ETSI has developed a kind of booklet on the topic, which has been kind of updated at least once and might be updated further. Also at the European Commission is an interesting kind of target group and stakeholder to consider. The project is owned by DG GROW, but also other DGs like on research innovation, connectivity, that means ICT, and others are an issue. We also involve environmental and consumer organization in our external advisory group. We invite research projects and organizations, and also SMEs, startups, and others, and also citizens and citizen group. That means we are quite comprehensive. In the long run, these are our impacts. That means we want to have more organizations in Europe, more teachers, more students, maybe additional 5,000 standardization experts by 2027. Just for an example, in Germany, more than 1/4 of the experts is above 60, and therefore either already retired or being to retired soon. Therefore, we have a big need, and in Europe, we have around 150,000 experts, and if 1/4, that means 50,000 are going to retire. Yeah, we have to have new experts to be involved. It means also more courses, more modules, especially also addressing the digital and green transitions is an issue. And it was mentioned before about standards on education, about standardization. There's already an ISO international workshop agreement number, I think 10 or 12. We will do a SEN workshop agreement. That means a European document, but which might be also maybe leveraged to the international level. That's the topic. If you are interested, please kind of invite us and maybe contribute in our webinars, maybe also in events if you are in Europe once a month. We are active on social media, and also maybe link us to other relevant organizations, maybe universities in Africa. But I'm quite open for further ideas. Yeah. Thanks a lot. And now I'm open for questions if you are interested in further topics around what we are doing. As I said, we are quite early in the stage, but we have already some internet presence. I can put the link to the webpage in the chat, and you can follow. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Blind.
Very brief. I will put the link of the project in the chat, because then you can also see more about what we are doing, who is involved, what are the next events, and for example, just promotion next Wednesday, next Thursday, July the 4th, starting at 11 o'clock, we have a first webinar on ideas about the innovative teaching concept colleagues are developing in the context of the project, and therefore you are invited to join who is interested in the topic, because the problem is more and more to get the students kind of really attached to the topic and being attractive for them to come to our courses, and therefore we have also to think about what do the students of today need. One colleague, they are into games. Okay, games is important, but I think that's not sufficient. We need a little bit more than just gaming and playing standardization games. Therefore, we ought to think about other ways to really kind of present quite attractive stuff and material, which at the end also really kind of improves the skills of our students related to standardization.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I think you can share the link in the chat. And thank you once again, I think, for a link that you shared on sustainability and standardization for a paper. I think everyone on the platform can take advantage of that particular link and the link that you're going to share as well. All right, so probably just one question that I can pose to you, Professor Blind. Okay, in the context of Edu4U Standards EU project, why is the teaching of 21st century skills for 21st century success require an ecosystem approach, which includes education about standardization?
We need new approaches, because when I started to work on the topic, the focus of standardization was really on the economic impact, increasing productivity, etc. But standardization is now also a much more kind of comprehensive strategy, both for companies also to achieve sustainability goals, and to really make students aware of the opportunities, but also the challenges to be effective regarding getting involved in standardization, but also implement them in order to promote the SDGs. For example, we need new aspects, and that is the need. And also what we see a little bit is that the so-called Generation Z has also maybe other values and attitudes. And the last point, which is unfortunately becoming more and more relevant, that standards are also playing an important role on the geopolitics. That's an issue, and therefore the originally quite kind of narrow focus on really maybe solving technical problems with really developing standards is much broader now. It was then having an economic aspect. It has now a sustainability aspect, but now even a geopolitical aspect and dimension. And this is quite complex, and therefore students have to be trained and taught how to deal with these different challenges in order to make at the end an effective contribution to standardization processes, and also being able to implement the standards maybe in their organizations. That's
Okay.
has hopefully answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. Thank you once again for your presentation and taking the time to join us. I think we'll just move on to the next presentation and just encourage everyone to make use or take advantage of the links that you have put in the chat. Thank you once again, Professor Blind.
Thank you for the invitation and the interesting event. And I'm looking forward maybe for follow-up events when maybe also some colleagues maybe can present something about the innovative teaching concepts they have developed so far, maybe by the end of the year, to share them also with you to get their feedback from all you experts. We're looking forward. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Moderator, perhaps what you can remind our presenters is that we shall be having the last word at the end of the presentations when the last presenter is given. So if they don't mind, they can still keep on, and then they can give us the last word before we close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that reminder, Mr. Kisore. So panelists, take note, there will be, on our program, there's a section for last final remarks from each of the panelists. So, okay, with that reminder, we move on to the next presentation by Miss Zaneta Lakova. Oh, I hope I've said that correctly, but welcome on the platform from Bell University, Slovakia. Okay, she's an associate professor. I won't attempt to say the name. Then it's on the screen. And then she'll be presenting on education on standardization, return on experience of the UNECE WP6 initiative. So, Dr. Lakova, you can present, share your screen, and go through your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the welcome. I will try to share my screen and my presentation right now. Can you all see it, please?
It's coming on.
Yes, it is. Maybe you can put it on slideshow.
Yeah.
And Dr. Lakova, I'm going to give you 5 to 7 minutes to go through your presentation such that we meet our times and maybe take a few questions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for invitation at this webinar and for this opportunity to present the UNECE W.6 initiative named Education on Standardization on behalf of the coordinator of this initiative. As you can see on the right side of the slide, education on standardization is among 6 important areas of work covered by Working Party on Regulatory Cooperation and Standardization Policies, WP.6.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Lakova, sorry to interrupt you there. Is it possible to put it on slideshow?
Yes, from my point of view, it's like this.
Oh, it's slideshow. Okay. Yes. All right, so I think you can proceed. It's okay.
Can you see the next slide right now?
We're still seeing the first slide. Maybe someone can confirm, Mr. Kisore?
No, it's the same.
You see the second slide, yeah, right now?
We don't see it.
I expand the screen because it is very small.
Okay.
It's very small on my side. It's quite small. You're able to expand on your computer?
I will try.
Oh, sorry.
No, but it has hidden the.
Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry for this technical issue.
You can try, there's a button at the bottom. If you go to the bottom of your screen, next to the plus or minus, it's another button for initiating slideshow, such that it fills the whole screen.
Yeah, I will start again.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in better.
Yes,
Okay.
I think you can proceed now. Thank you.
But can you click on video?
It is.
No. Yeah. Click this one.
Okay. Okay.
Can you?
So
No. Can you click on the video where it is? Can you click it so that we can see here?
can you see it right now?
No, but we see it, but it is not in a video form. But it's okay.
It's okay. You can proceed, please.
It is
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so sorry for the technical issues. My role today is to present initiative named STARTIT initiative, which historically was established by WP.6 in November 2012. And this initiative groups together experts mostly from academia, but not exclusively, to promote good practices and to share national experience. The START initiative has the following tasks. First of all, promotion of standard awareness in the educational establishment, including elaboration of module program on standardization. And the second task is to assist in sharing best practices in teaching standards to different audiences. In 1970 already, the WP.6 adopted, and it was revised in 2012, Recommendation I on regulatory cooperation and standardization policies. And this recommendation recommends that government should encourage, wherever feasible and where the national legal framework permits the introduction by educational establishment of the subject of standardization into the curricula of educational establishments and particularly of universities for students majoring in technical and scientific subjects, as well as in legal, economic, and management studies. Then to vocational education and training of specialists in standardization. As a third point, enhancement of awareness-raising activities targeted to the business community and regulatory authorities. Last but not the least, the further study on standardization issues in order to identify best practices in ensuring that standardization and regulatory regimes contribute to meeting the legitimate concerns of society without creating unnecessary technical barriers to trade. What are the previous achievements of the STARTIT initiative? Experts have elaborated a model program which represents a type of guidelines for education about standardization on education and relevant teaching materials. They are freely available on the websites, and some of the topics or chapters were further developed to the larger extent. For example, the chapter 12, which is about international trade standards and regulation, or chapter 10, management system standards. And these chapters are at the disposal of the large public on the initiative website. In 2022, several of these modules were used as the basis for WP.6 e-learning platform. For example, introduction to risk management, or introduction to market surveillance, or gender responsive standards. And they are also available for the large public. STARTIT Focal Point Network was endorsed by W.6 annual session in 2022. And it's also a tool to promote education on trade-related standardization. What are the target groups for the use of the achievement of STARTIT initiative? As was widely discussed by previous panelists, and we can also confirm that there is a variety of target groups for the use of the STARTIT achievements, as standards help build a safer and more sustainable and resilient planet. It is important to make sure that new generation are aware of what standards and regulations are, and how they can be used to meet global goals and targets. For these reasons, not only the students and trainees in technical sciences represents the target of our initiative, other fields of study are also relevant, namely trainees in international trade, logistics, legal, product design, negotiation, marketing, or business management. The experience, traditional experience of teaching standards to students in technical fields of study is very important and beneficial. However, some challenges need to be stressed when we want to try to implement educational standardization to non-technical trainees. Firstly, the language and communication tools should be adapted. Terms and language in technical study programs can differ from language of students in social sciences and of wider population. Secondly, universities could be reluctant to introduce new courses because of the fact that a large variety of other challenges in a modern and very dynamic world are also crucial and need to be taught to the students. So for this reason, we think that introduction of specific modules with less than 20 hours of teaching could also help to increase the employability of our students and could bring some benefits for the whole society. The third point is that training materials need to be updated to current dynamic environment and especially to the new approach, to the new generation of students, which are much more open if they are working with case studies, if they are trained in the way of learning by doing, whether if they are using e-learning platforms and so on. And we can't forget that preparing training materials and courses which need to be attractive for various stakeholders, not only students, but also those which are included in vocational training. So as a result, as a solution to find to all these challenges, we need to meet, we need to discuss, we need a dialogue, and that's why we have a platform of a UNICE started initiative. And ongoing and future activities of the started initiative tries to contribute to the process of eventual shift of perception of the standardization skills to their integration, at least partially, to the group of transferable skills. So portable skills, or let's say the abilities that a trainee can transfer from one job to another one. In general, transferable skills are valuable across many industries and can significantly improve productivity and job performance. Traditionally, the skills like communication skills or digital skills could be found among transferable skills. More recently, sustainability skills are becoming an integral part of global frameworks on transferable skills and are boosting adaptability of trainees and improving their employability. This approach is also inspiring for standardization skills development, what the started initiative is fully supporting. The started initiative is used as a platform for discussion and exchange concerning...
Sorry, Dr. Lakova. I think there's a challenge with your slides. They don't seem to be moving. I don't know which slide number are we at now?
Oh.
We're still seeing the second slide.
So I'm really sorry because I'm really moving toward the last of the slides.
It's okay. I think presentations will be shared after the webinar. But I think just for everyone to get along, to also be on track with you, maybe you can just share the current slide you're at now.
Okay. The last thing what I would like to say is to invite you to all the initiative, and I think I will also share it in the chat with you, the website of Started Initiative to see what are the ongoing activities and what are the next meeting of our initiative, because we organize a webinar online meeting next week as well. And will be also a possibility to share your knowledge and your experience as the members of this online meeting as well. So I'm really sorry for these technical problems we were facing too, but I hope that the main message was transferred, and for sure the presentation itself will be available for all the participants after the meeting. So thank you very much for your cooperation.
Thank you, Dr. Lakova, for availing your time. We thank you for your presentation as well. And I think some of them already shared. If not shared, you can just send to the ARSO Secretariat and they will share with the rest of the participants. Maybe just one question to you. Why is education about standardization important for achieving of 21st century education expectations, requirements, and sustainable development? And probably just to add to that, what initiatives have been launched by the UNECE, including the curriculum?
Yeah. Okay, so it is important, as it was said by previous panelists, that if we want to achieve the sustainable goals in general, it's very fruitful to take standardization skills into account and to give the possibility for the new generation of students and the experts later to gain these skills. So that's why we are persuaded that it is something which will help to the society to develop or to go further towards sustainable goals. And UNICEF initiative itself is proposing study materials which need to be developed and which need to help to those who would like to teach education at universities to make their work, their everyday work, a little bit easier to and more acceptable for the students. So this is the role of the Started Initiative, in brief said.
Okay, thank you for your answer. It adequately answered the question. Thank you once again for your presentation. I know we had some technology glitches, but those tend to be quite common. But then since you're going to be receiving the presentation, we'll make use of that. But then we quite enjoyed your presentation. Thank you, Dr. Lakova. Okay, so we will now proceed to the next presentation from Jean-Joseph Kwasi. I have tried my best, okay, who's the Chief Technical Advisor, ACP Quality Infrastructure Program, Division of SME Competitiveness, Quality Job Creation, Competitiveness, Quality and Compliance Unit, UNIDO. So Mr. Kwasi is going to be presenting on understanding the 2016 to 2025 African Third Industrialization Development Decade Objectives and Strategies with Effective Quality Infrastructure as a strategic pillar and for promoting quality education. Mr. Kwasi, welcome. You can share your presentation and proceed to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Let me share my screen. Is it okay, my screen?
Yes,
Hello?
we can see you.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, I hope that I will not take too much time being the last to intervene. And knowing that most of the things have been already said by my colleague that made presentation, I'll be rapid. And I know that most of the participants are tired, so I will try to go fast. I have been requested to talk about the understanding of the African Third Industrial Development and Decade Objective and Strategy with effective quality infrastructure as a strategic pillar and for promoting quality education. So my presentation will have a three-part. I will call the objective and strategy, talk about the UNIDO approach to quality infrastructure, and finish by the need to building quality culture, particularly in education, including quality in education curricula. Here I recall some mission of UNIDO. As you know, we are part of the UN system, and our priority area are supporting sustainable supply chain, limiting climate breakdown, ending hunger, and our function are in technical cooperation, our action-oriented research and policy advisory services. We also intervene in the domain of normative standards, related work, and fostering partnership for knowledge and technology transfer. As you know, the UN Sustainable Development Goal 1 we have developed, UN has developed 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and one of them is based on ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunity for all. And as you see, this is about quality education. And based on this, what you call continental educational strategy 2016-2025 had been established, and it is underpinned by communication, governance, and implementation framework for its delivery at the national, sub-regional, and continental level, and have developed 12 strategy. I'm not going on the 12 strategy, but I recall some important of them, particularly to revitalize the teaching professional to ensure quality and relevance at all levels of education, harness the capacity of ITC to improve access, quality, and management of education and training system, strengthen the science and maths curricula in youth training, and disseminate scientific knowledge and culture in society. And this one, revitalize and expand tertiary education, research, and innovation to address continental challenges and promote global competitiveness. So these are some elements of this strategy. And when in 2016, the UN General Assembly proclaimed the Third Industrial Development Decade for Africa by a resolution. This resolution has specifically requested to UNIDO to develop, operationalize, and lead the implementation of the program in coordination with the African Union Commission, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, and the Economic Commission for Africa. And another request was to foster in partnerships, coordinate with other relevant UN entities, and organize joint initiatives in favor of industrialization, including technology, etc. Based on this, one of the UNIDO strategies has been the promotion of the development of effective quality infrastructure in Africa, including initiative on awareness creation, training, capacity building, and quality education. So for UNIDO, all the 12, 11 elements in terms of strategy should lead to achieve one of the goal, taking into account the environment, such as the climate change, energy transition, digital transformation, sustainability. We had a case of COVID, but taking into account the reality of the environment, of the reality of the market, for example, the limited of changing human resources, the weak infrastructure, etc., etc. So for quality infrastructure, the UNIDO approach is this one. UNIDO approach to quality and standard, and this approach is systemic and based on market need. For UNIDO, everything that you have to develop should correspond to a demand. So, and for this, standardization is a core element. And the element to be considered in this quality infrastructure should be at the governance level, where you have to deal with regulatory framework, quality policies, etc. And in the past years, UNIDO has supported some regions such as ECOWAS to establish the legal framework to develop its quality infrastructure, including the development of a regional quality policy. And the other element is to work on quality infrastructure institutions to reinforce their capacities in terms of metrology, standardization, and accreditation that are the pillar in terms of quality, and then move to increase the quality infrastructure services that provide quality services to the market and to all the system. And then have action on enterprises by upgrading and work on the development of value chain, and finally achieve the consumer by building awareness and capacity building. This is the way UNIDO sees the whole system of quality. So I will not go on the detail of this. You read it, but you will see that we have specific concern regarding SMEs competitiveness and market access, the recognition of compliance of products and services, and the effectiveness of harmonized policies and framework. That is very important. For example, for Africa, in the case of the AFCFTA, it is important to have harmonized system to be able to compare the quality of the product and services coming from various regions of Africa. And we have worked all the time on building the quality system in the region with some result, but finally we have seen that the development of standardization and quality infrastructure is finally about building long-term quality character. If the quality character is not developed, you have a market that is not quality demand, and all the system is blocked. And this quality character should be built based on the awareness of the population on quality matters. We have seen that in the market, for example, we have it had been presented the standard ISO 21001. That is a new standard to be developed. But you will see that the main problem to implement this standard will be if we don't have people trained to, we don't have evaluators, we don't have auditors, we don't have consultants to support university to establish this system, it will be a problem. So the need of training is important. And the training also at university level, at secondary level at university, at tertiary level. Most of us, for example, me, I started in the quality system by working at the standardization body. I didn't have a specific training in standardization, standard development, quality infrastructure, etc. And it is when working that I got specific training. But the real need is that we have to train students going in the market, going in the enterprises. They need to know what is about standard. They need to know what is about metrology, etc. During this presentation, we are talking about only standardization. Yeah, that's right. But we, as UNIDO, we are talking about training on quality in general, because standardization is the most important, one of the most important pillar, but there is also the other domain where all what you have said during the presentations is also for this. UNIDO has already developed experiences for quality and education, particularly in West Africa, where we made a study on introduction of quality infrastructure at university level in ECOWAS region, with identification of the needs, proposal of action plan and training of some teachers in quality infrastructure. We have made, during the ACP QI program we are implementing, we made a study to identify the need of quality infrastructure in education curricula in Africa in the framework of the program, the ongoing program, and we have planned to, one of the activity is how to facilitate the teaching of quality and the introduction of quality infrastructure in education curricula. Apart from that, we have also developed some specific training that you see here. And yeah, I think that I can stop here. So we are quietly interested in the subject of this workshop. It is very important that quality should be included in the educational curricula to develop the quality demand, but also to prepare the government, because before taking decision regarding quality, even the government people, they need to be trained. They need to be aware. So thank you very much for this opportunity given to UNIDO to talk about its experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you've made even my job easier in terms of your last remarks, where my question was, do we need quality education? Which you've already answered that question. Thank you so much for your presentation. So I think now we'll just take, I think, 2 questions that I picked from the chat. I think one question was already answered. I have 3. It's for the others. Apologies if I'm not able to attend to them now, but then I'm sure ARSO will be able to attend to your questions and send responses. So one question was from Michael Moyo, where he had asked when we can expect the revised standard of ISO 27001, of which I think that was replied by Dr. Arti, where she indicated that there's currently a draft international standard, so which means it's almost out. And then another question is how from Dennis Male, how does ISO intend to support stakeholders in academia or standards to take this forward? Maybe I can address this to Mr. Gisore.
Yeah, thank you very much. What we've done currently, as I indicated, is that we have developed the curriculum that we are ready to share with the universities. But again, we are intending to have continuous engagements. Remember that this is something we started quite a while back, and during that time, it was not very easily apparent to most of the universities that we needed to have this education about standards in the universities. But now I think it is becoming more apparent that it is required. However, we note that probably they also need a way of, entering the education about standards into the curriculum in certain ways that make it easier and lighter, so that if someone is taking a course in electrical engineering, for example, they could be having units that are dedicated to standards for particular processes and materials, and certain systems in the teaching courses units, and that could then become a way of mainstreaming the education about standards very much into all the courses that people are taking. So we are looking forward to having serious engagements in doing this with the universities, so that it becomes easier for the graduates at the end of it all to, when they come out to the market, they understand the issues about standards, and they understand how to even do the standards themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. There was one other question. Is it possible for ARSO to provide training on ISO 21001 of 2018? Or the current ISO 21001 that will be there when the trainings are done, if it's possible for ISO to provide training. Maybe Mr. Gisore, you can take that one as well.
Yeah, we can definitely do this, not just as ARSO itself, on its own, but we have partners with whom we can do this work and do the training. All we need is to get the demand, and then we can address it.
And Mr. Ruben, I think that in the framework of the program we are implementing, it will be possible to envisage such a training with the support of the program.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. I think now we will move to takeaways from our panelists. I will be gender sensitive and start with the ladies, maybe Dr. Arti. In 2 seconds, what would be your takeaway for the people who were able to attend this webinar?
Okay, 2 seconds is difficult. I might take about 50 seconds.
Okay. Just 30 seconds.
To implement ISO 21001, the biggest challenge that I'm currently seeing is lack of awareness on the importance of implementing a standard in a university. So all the initiatives that are related to the education about standardization will surely increase awareness on understanding of standards, and also why standardization processes are important. So I think this new knowledge and skill will surely make implementation of ISO 21001 more effective than ever before. Thank you. I'm really happy that you organized this. Thank you. You're on mute.
So I noted that. Thank you. Thank you once again for even availing your time. Dr. Lakova, takeaways?
Thank you very much. Okay, if I could make just final message, I would like to say that I'm very happy to see how many people are more and more appreciated that the standardization skills are really like necessary skills for the future generation, and that we need to continue to raise this awareness and make standardization skills to be a part of transferable skills, and continue with events and the webinars like this one That's why I sent a present invitation for another meeting next week. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Lakova. We move on to Professor Blind. Okay, Professor Blind, give you some time. Maybe we can hear from Mr. Maseka if he's still on the platform.
I am on the platform.
Thank you.
My takeaway is that we really appreciate the preparation that is going into this webinar, and we encourage to have more consultants, globally, quality assurance consultants, to be invited to such fora. And going forward, there is no substitute for quality infrastructure in educational sector other than implementation of this standard. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful takeaway. Maybe last but not least, we can hear from Mr. Kowasi.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have really appreciated to participate in this webinar because I have learned a lot, and I'm happy to see that what we are interested in, there are many ongoing experiences in the region in some university, and also this new standard ISO 21001 that we could be able to support the promotion at the university level. We could maybe in collaboration with ARSO support the training of this in the region. So thank you very much for this opportunity given to UNIDO to intervene on this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your final remarks. I think there are a lot of comments in the chat box in appreciation for this webinar. I think ARSO will be continuing with the series of webinars. But then now we are coming to the close of the webinar, and I leave this time to our hosts, Mr. Gisore and Mr. Mkoyi, to give closing remarks.
Yeah, I'll just take this opportunity to thank all the panelists and also the participants. We don't take you for granted, but to indicate that as we move forward, we shall be looking at how we share the information with the participants as well as those institutions who are interested in the activities. I take this opportunity to also inform you about what is upcoming. We've done the 46th session of our webinar, the 45th session of our webinar today with Zimbabwe. We are looking forward to having next month on 24th another webinar that will be dealing with the reference laboratories. We hope that those involved in testing will be able to participate. And then after that, we shall be having another one dealing with the market surveillance and enforcement in trade, which will be hosted with Egypt. The others, of course, will be informed during those webinars, which others will be coming on, and we look forward to ensuring that we respond to the needs of those who participate and also to the African Continental Free Trade Area and other developments in the continent which will facilitate sustainable development. So we look forward to all those who participate. You will be getting some kind of appreciation, I think, in forms of certificates that will come to you as long as we have your full details in this. And we really appreciate a lot that we have been able to get our host to share with us what they are doing. And I look forward to getting the feedback and we responding to whatever comes up on the comments that you have done. You can always send us the comments directly, those that you also wish to learn. Those who wish to get training, you are also welcome to indicate which kind of training you would like to get. See how we package the training that is necessary for you. So thank you very much. I would like to welcome
So Ruben, we don't hear you now.
Okay, I think probably there was a technical glitch there. Maybe Mr. Mkoi can just also give final remarks before we put a close to the webinar.
Thank you very much. I think what is left for me is to thank all the participants and also all the presenters. And then to say, in terms of the way forward, you know, the way ARSO operates, it is in all the jurisdictions, it is represented. In Zimbabwe, ARSO is represented by the Standards Association of Zimbabwe. So in terms of taking forward all the issues that we're discussing, we're available to work with you to ensure that we implement standardization for the benefit of all. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I think we can officially say that the webinar is closed. Enjoy the rest of your days and continue with standardization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nozipo.